Wednesday afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. It is officially 12:10. My name is Thad Graham. I am the education specialist with the Victim Services Program. Today, we're going to be looking at healthy masculinity, focusing on defining it as well as its importance in teaching it. So, of course, our mission here at Family Services is to provide resources to build healthier relationships and promote personal growth. Our vision, of course, is to engage with communities to meet the needs of their most vulnerable members. And of course, as always, just a little heads up, the information in this webinar may be triggering. Your mental health is the most important thing to us, so if you need to step away, please feel free to do so. So like I said, the objectives for today are to define and discuss healthy masculinity, define and discuss toxic masculinity, define and discuss rigid gender norms and their roles, discuss the importance of teaching healthy masculinity to your children, specifically boys, but to your children in general, and discuss the negative impacts that toxic masculinity and rigid gender roles can have on men. So we often see statements like these: be a man, toughen up, man up, and boys don't cry. Young men are often on the receiving end of messages that create rigid roles around masculinity, rigid roles that define who they are. It's a set of stage directions, a script that men learn early, and they learn to perform it in order to gain entry into the world of other men. However, behaviors governed by traditional gender roles that many young men learn to perform can be harmful, such as suppressing basic human needs to express yourself and to express yourselves emotionally. This kind of harmful masculinity is rooted in negative aspects of traditional masculinity roles that pressure boys and men to live up to an unattainable standard of what we consider manhood, often isolating them, damaging their self-esteem, and creating a domino effect of adverse behavioral, physical, and often public health outcomes. These are rigid norms that we need to overcome. So what is toxic masculinity? It's a subject that you'll hear people debate about. You'll hear a ton of different definitions as well. There is no one single definition that states what it is, which also contributes to the confusion around the term and what it is. In its simplest form, in its simplest terms, toxic masculinity is a system that reinforces male superiority and often uses intimidation, violence, and/or abuse to maintain that sense of power and control. What about gender norms and toxic masculinity? How are these linked? Well, when we look at what a man should be, when we look at the Brannon masculinity scale, we today say that men should be the breadwinners. They should provide for their families. They aim to be admired and respected. They have to be tough. They have to be physically strong and capable of handling pain. They must be like a machine. They must be strong, confident, and decisive workers. They must avoid any femininity at all costs and engaging in feminine activities. Men need to conceal their emotions and never show feelings. Men need to be courageous, aggressive, and forceful, as well as capable of engaging in violence if necessary. So when we look at these aspects of gender norms and how they contribute to toxic masculinity, these norms aren't necessarily negative or harmful. It's the rigidity of the definition of masculinity that can become troubling and often toxic. These rigid positions consequently cause and are embraced by most men, but it goes against what we consider or what would be normal for a complete human being, someone that is capable of being loving, that is capable of being gentle or capable of being understanding. These gender norms often pigeonhole men into thinking that there is only one way to be, that you have to be strong, you have to be powerful, you have to be unrelenting, you have to never show emotion, and you have to be violent. And that's where we lose diversity as a man. Unfortunately, society pushes these standards on males at a very, very young age. And boys adapt quickly. A lot of boys quickly learn to overconform to these more rigid gender roles because it is safe. If boys express acts of their gender that go against these traditional norms, they're often shamed. They're made fun of. They're ridiculed. They're bullied. There's a penalty for not conforming to what society believes a man should be. So they often overconform. It's safer to overconform than to push back against what society believes. So what is the problem? What happens when we overconform to what society believes a man should be? Men who engage in unhealthy levels of traditional masculinity traits are often more likely to experience cardiovascular problems, harsh discipline at schools, school dropouts, suicide, which we'll talk about again, violence, incarceration, substance misuse and abuse, early mortality, as well as the risk of becoming victims to crimes. We are essentially encouraging men to act out against themselves and against other people, including accepting violence and intimidation as normal and expected male behavior. Limiting male emotional awareness and expression creates and exacerbates mental health issues, while also reinforcing the social isolation that men endure. Remember that, we'll talk about that here again in a second. These hardships are inflicted under the guise of independence and strength, qualities that are championed by a toxically rigid culture and cultural ideal of masculinity. Remember, they have to overconform or be ridiculed. So what are the consequences when we look at them a little bit further? Life expectancy for a man is around 5 years less than a woman. And this is at least partially due to the lack of routine medical care and participation in more risky behaviors. Remember, men are considered to have to be strong. If men have to ask for help or seek help, that's considered a weakness. In the United States, men are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide than women. Men are more likely to commit and finish the act of suicide. Men are half as likely to seek mental health care than women. And 1 in 5 men feel lonely every day because of the overcompensation, because of not wanting to be labeled as feminine, to break those rigid masculinity rules that are set by society. Men are 1 in 5 feel lonely every single day. And men also commit 90% of homicides in the United States. When looking at something like sexual assault as well, we know that men are going to commit up to 99% of sexual assaults in the United States. Unfortunately, violence, force is expected when looking at those rigid gender norms. It keeps men in emotional prison, leaving them without the ability to gain deep knowledge of themselves or to even forge intimate relationships with others. It allows men to place less value on the other to the point where we can dehumanize someone else. It allows men to treat those who are differently as if they are less or have less personal worth if they don't fit those expected models of masculinity. Often men will display muted emotions. They'll show a lack of empathy, experience aggression that tends to persist over time or get worse. They will often engage in abusive behavior towards loved ones. They have to have that power and control, or they're not considered a man. They experience higher rates of mental illness diagnosis and often receive a misdiagnosis of psychological disorders. And of course, as we said before, they often avoid seeking professional help. Seeking help, especially when it comes to mental health, with these rigid gender norms and what we consider masculinity today, is a sign of weakness. It's a sign that something is wrong and that I'm not truly a man if I get help. So how do we combat that? How do we change the norm? What does it mean when we talk about healthy masculinity? It's simple. When we look at healthy masculinity, we're talking about being honest with oneself about your own feelings, your needs and desires, treating all others with kindness and respect, not using your size, strength, or power to get what you want from others, not being forceful. It allows men to experience a fuller range of emotions and share their feelings with others. It allows men to cry without shame and allows men to experience deep love and affection, both socially and romantically. It allows men to accept their bodies even if they're not perfectly muscular or sculpted. It allows them to treat women and girls with the same thoughtfulness with which they like to be treated. It allows them to stand up and advocate for women and others. It helps to create and maintain friendships, accept that anger is no excuse for violence or abuse, experience the joy of touch and affection, and to create instead of destroy. It also allows men to express a full range of emotion and to feel validated, to be vulnerable and seek help when necessary, which is very important, to treat people equally and respectfully, to listen to and value women and girls, to serve as role models for their male peers, and to develop as emotionally available caretakers and parents to be both boys and girls, to be a better father. So how do we teach this? How do we teach these traits of healthy masculinity? We understand the negatives, we understand the positives that it can have. So we have to, of course, move forward and practice this in our everyday lives. So it is important for young men to understand that masculinity looks different for each individual. We are all different people. What is right for one is not right for the other. And we need to understand that masculinity and what healthy masculinity looks like in each person is different. So how do we teach it? We, of course, model healthy masculinity at home. Help your son get a real grip on what being a good person looks like. Show your daughter how a well-behaved man should act. Get involved. There are programs like Coaching Boys into Men and Parents in the Know that allow parents, coaches, and or volunteers to get trained to talk to their children about healthy masculinity, healthy sexuality, and what is or is not appropriate. There are also numerous free resources available online to learn how to teach masculinity to your children. One example, I got these next examples off a wonderful dad website that teaches how to teach healthy masculinity at home. So the first example they have here is fairness. One of the most important aspects of positive masculinity is the idea of being just. To be just means being fair and doing the right thing even when no one else is around. So what are the top traits they're looking for? Someone that is going to look out for others, that is going to make sure that everyone is treated fairly, and that holds other people accountable. So how do we teach it? We can teach masculinity through just actions by being judicial at home. If your child does or says something inappropriate, kindly and calmly let them know that their actions and or words have power and consequences. When we're just, we work actively toward making the world a more equal and fair place. Another example is integrity. Acting with integrity can take many forms, ranging from being honest to doing hard work. All forms of integrity demonstrate a trustworthy competency. When we act with integrity, we show others that they can open up to us and rely on us. Some of the top traits are keeping your word, admit when you're wrong, and how we can grow. Tell the truth. So how do we teach it? It can be hard for us to admit our faults, but it is necessary. If we screw up as a parent, showing our children how to be trustworthy, how to maintain our word, and how to admit when we're wrong and ask for help is very important. Make sure your son or child knows that he can always tell you the truth, that you will appreciate and love them, and that you are honest with them as well. Even if they're going to be in trouble, it is important that you tell the truth. Being able to admit when you're wrong, change your mind, and thoroughly listen to others' words can show your child that it's okay to make mistakes and to let others take the lead as well. Emotional openness. Men tend to freeze up when it comes to showing emotion because it has been framed as weak or feminine. We're humans. Emotions and showing emotion is a natural human thing. However, being able to show and manage our emotions is as important for health as a good workout. Some of the top traits you're looking for is that you channel your anger properly, show affection to those around, and isn't afraid to let others know their feelings. Teaching it at home, your child can greatly benefit from seeing you when you're hurting, when you're proud of them, or even how much you love them. You teach masculinity in a positive way whenever you let your child know feelings are nothing to be ashamed of. Simply telling your child that you love them and that you're proud is a great way to do this. Remember, emotions are often labeled as feminine things. So lacking feelings is thought to be more masculine. This is false. It's a false perception and it creates a damaging precedent. It tells our young men not to show love or to ask for help. Two of the most important things that all human beings need. Confidence. How many times have you let other people's opinion define you? One of the most important aspects of being a good man or a good human being is to be confident in yourself, to embrace who you are. It's great for children to see their parents let their personality shine so they don't feel embarrassed of their own identities. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be you. Another defining feature of confidence is approaching situations and saying, I can handle this. Whether it's a father-daughter dance, fixing a car, disarming a bomb, confident men know they're up to the task. But they also know when they need to say, I need help. Overconfidence can be a vice instead of a virtue. Being confident in your abilities and knowing the limits to your abilities are great. Some of the top traits says, I think I can do this. Allows himself to be happy and like his interests or their interests. Knows that they deserve a place in this world. So how do we teach it? To demonstrate confidence at home, practice giving your child pep talks or reveal your own self-motivation strategies. Encourage them to surround themselves with friends who accept them for who they are. Also try to remind your child that sometimes even the most prepared person can be in over their head. And once again, it's okay to ask for help. The last one on here, leading by example. You can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk? A big part of how to teach healthy masculinity in a positive way is leading by example, showing your child what doing right looks like. They're going to look to you for guidance, so don't be scared to show it off. When your child sees you take initiative, they will see the value of tackling problems and acting selflessly. Some of the top traits you're looking for is to be curious about the world, asking what can I do to help, and of course, doing the hard work that needs done. So how do we teach it? Of course, we teach it by showing how setting a good example is a masculine trait from home. Show your child what good behavior looks like. If the yard needs mowing, we get out there and we mow it. Need to stop at the store, we're doing it, and we surprise our partner with flowers. Pick up that piece of trash, say thank you, and do what needs to be done. Be a good role model and lead by example. So of course, Victim Services is here as well. We can provide information on coaching boys into men, as well as some of the other programming that helps teach parents about healthy masculinity and healthy sexuality. Of course, if you know anybody that is a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault, please feel free to call us or text us at 814-944-3585. That is our helpline number. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Please find us on social media. Our social media presence at FSI is growing every day. Everything from this programming to other unique videos you can find on our social media, as well as other great information. You can also learn at your own pace, either on our YouTube channel or our Go to Stage, where all of these videos are found within an hour after they're completed. Of course, our contact information if you need to get a hold of us. The summer schedule for Webinar Wednesdays, we will have another webinar on August 11th, mental health effects of DV on adults. And in the beginning of September, we will be talking about the importance of teaching healthy sexuality to your children. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. I will, of course, hang out for a few minutes afterwards to answer any and all questions. Of course, my resources are here and here as well. And if you have any training or education needs, my contact information as well. Thank you everyone for attending. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Have a great Wednesday, and I'll see you all later.